Priorities meeting. We will call this meeting to order. Begin with the evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, we can exit the building through the doors immediately behind the gallery to the east and west. If those doors for some reason are blocked, we will exit through the rear, through the council lounge and out onto Lions Park. The gazebo is the muster point. We will stay outside and not enter the building again until somebody with a lot more authority than one of us tells us it's okay to come back in. We'll also let you guys know before we begin that this meeting is being recorded. The recording may include your image, voice, or other personal information. This information is collected under the Protection of Privacy Act. If you have any questions about this, please contact the town's Access and Privacy Officer. We have the adoption of the agenda. Before we get there, Ms. Phillips, do we have anything to add to the agenda?
Yes, good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and Council. We would like to request to add end of pier boardwalk to the agenda.
Okay, the end of the pier boardwalk we will put on 4D. 4D will be the end of the pier boardwalk. Okay, so we will ask for adoption of the amended agenda. Who would like to throw their hand up for that? Excellent. Councillor Iwanicki, all in favor? So passed. Excellent. We have a delegation today which is an odd thing for governance and priorities meetings, but we have a delegation from Neuron Mobility. So we would invite that delegation up to the mics. When you sit on that chair, the mic in front of you is a little round button. If you'd like to press that button and let us know.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. My name is Isaac Ransom. I'm Head of Corporate Affairs for Neuromobility Canada. And I'm here to provide a brief update on our operations in Sylvan Lake. For those of you who are not familiar with Neuron, we are one of Canada's largest e-scooter and e-bike operators. We operate about 5,000 devices at any given time across Canada. That includes right here in Sylvan Lake and a number of markets across Alberta. We've been an innovator in the space, bringing a number of world firsts such as topple detection, precision geofencing, and a number of collaborations to market, including many of the things that you see on the scooters, such as voice assistance, helmet locks, and capping speeds on e-scooters. So I'd like to first talk a little bit about some of the numbers here in Sylvan Lake that we've seen over the past year and since launching. In total, we have over 24,000 unique riders. So these are riders that have used the service for the first time and have either ridden again or continue to use the service on an ongoing basis. Over 124,500 trips have been logged since we've launched here in the city. And it's an estimated 11.5 tons of CO2 emissions have been reduced as a result here in the town of Sylvan Lake. 80% of riders have made more than one trip with Neuron in a month on a Neuron, so these are repeat riders. And we also see that the average trip is about 2 kilometers here in the town with an average time of 13 minutes. There's generally very high satisfaction, and over 244,000 trips have been logged here in the city. Or sorry, in the town. Apologies. Each year, we go out and we do a rider survey to assess how our operations are going and how our riders are feeling about the service. And we ask a wide range of questions, and a number of those pertain to the economic impact, how people are using the scooters, and overall satisfaction with the service. On a very high level, we're seeing a number of use cases here in the town. In our survey, riders were able to select a number of different uses for e-scooters. About 42% of riders have noted that they use it just to go out and do general shopping. So this is to, buy groceries, go to the drugstore, those sorts of things. And that's followed by 21% of riders using this to go out and visit restaurants, bars, and cafes, followed by other recreational venues, such as things for entertainment. We know from our riders that about 20% of all trips would not have happened if an e-scooter is not available, which is an important metric. This means that these are people that would normally be not making a journey. So these could be people that don't have a vehicle, don't have access to public transit, aren't able to afford an Uber or a taxi or some other form of ride service. So it's providing access around the city for a lot of people. 60% of trips result in a direct purchase. So anytime anybody's going out on an e-scooter trip on a Neuron, there's a very high probability that they're spending money here in the town. About half of all riders report spending over $10 on their trip. So that's either while they're going to or on their way back, they've made a purchase. The average spend is $51 in the city or in the town. And that's estimated to have had an economic impact of about $3.7 million last year here in the town of Sylvan Lake. We also know too that from our rider survey, 30% of trips are replacing a car journey, which is pretty significant, which is contributing to that offset of CO2 emissions shown in the previous slide. A particular interest is just seeing how riders are getting around the town and where they're visiting. Most of the hotspots, which should come as no surprise, are more in the south part of this, or sorry, along the lake on the south side. And so you can see by the red dots on this map where most people are visiting, followed by a couple of select locations further in the town. And with that, I'm happy to conclude and answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Stindy?
Good afternoon again, and thank you for meeting earlier and having a discussion too. One question I had is regarding the number that are actually staged in Sylvan Lake and number of scooters. And I know it changes by the time of year. What would be maybe typical now, and what would be typically our peak numbers?
Yeah, through your chair, thank you, Councillor, for the question. Generally, we start with about 75 to 100 scooters at the beginning of the operating season, so that's early when the snow starts to melt and street cleanup is happening, and then it'll gradually increase to about 150 at any given time. Maybe a little bit less, but we try to keep that cap in the town at any given time during peak season.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
So as mentioned, we had a meeting earlier. It was supposed to be a scooter ride, and it rained. But I just wanted, could you touch on the idea of the creating the spaces for parking on the lakeshore? I think that was one of the concerns of council, is the discarded by scooters all over the lakeshore. And I thought that was, I really like that idea.
Through chair to the CAO. Yeah, so we have a number of different parking options that we can implement in communities that we operate in. This includes tightening up geofences to force scooters to park in certain areas, or to restrict where they're ridden in a particular community, and to ensure that they don't block certain areas. We can also use those geofences to reduce speeds. In this particular case here, we were discussing about some restricted parking to ensure that e-scooters are not being left in certain areas, and to ensure trips are being ending in particular locations that would not impede pedestrian traffic and help to better make better use of the space near the lake. So this is a practice that we use in a number of communities, and it's something we're happy to work with staff on to implement here in Sylvan Lake if it's desired. And we had discussed previously about doing some optimization of that service area, working in collaboration with the town to achieve that as a first step to help address some of the concerns around parking and scooters being abandoned in certain areas where we wouldn't want them to. At a high level, what this would mean is that we would create no parking zones, so trips would not be able to end in those areas. And if a rider did leave a scooter in one of those areas, they would receive a financial penalty for doing so. But this would help to alleviate some of the pressures from scooters that might be left in undesirable locations.
Mayor Hansen.
One of the other questions we asked earlier was around, basically giving away your answer by question, trying to think how to frame this, but really the question we asked was how can we prevent some of that activity that isn't what they're meant for? So children, people riding doubles, those types of things, and you talked about that reporting process and the tools that could be available. Could you highlight those?
Yep. Through you, Chair, Mayor. Thank you for the question. So there's a number of activities that we can take to discourage certain behavior. Certainly enforcement is a big part of that. So if there are resources that the town can allocate to encourage and highlight some of these issues, we're certainly happy to do that. Around other riding behaviors such as safety, we can work with public health practitioners to help amplify that message and work with the town on campaigns. We can also work on a number of different safety initiatives as well in app and in person to assist with that. And then there are a number of things that we can do to create friction points for those that are underage to reduce their ability to get onto the platform. What we do take very seriously is reports of underage riding and tandem riding, and one of the ways that we deal with that is by simply banning riders when we receive those reports. What that means is that every device that has the Neuron app on it has an ID that's tied to that app, and we can ban that device from being able to sign up again to get on the platform. So if we do remove somebody who has breached those riding rules here in the town, we can make sure that they don't do so again, particularly if they're underage or distributing or illustrating very dangerous riding behaviors that repeat after being warned here in the town.
Councillor Cindy?
My question's related to guiding people into certain zones, and it's about, the question really is about how creative can we be in the shapes of zones that can be ridden in, and then having a place on either side they can't go on. And I noticed on the map that we've seen so far, the grayed out zones where you cannot ride, they're all polygon shapes, you know, and no surprise, that's the easiest thing to draw. But we've talked about having a curved path used instead of a straight sidewalk path, for instance. Is that difficult? And my question is also is, what is the narrowest zone we can create? Thinking about some of our trails are about 8 feet wide.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor. Yeah, so there's a spectrum of issues with geofencing. Certainly we can draw almost anything, but the issue always becomes how reactive the device is going to be to the geofences based on a variety of issues such as weather, tree cover, power lines, all those sorts of things factor into accuracy. So it becomes a highly technical exercise of re-optimizing if we are to do those sorts of activities. You know, it's hard to say without looking at exactly where we might be doing this stuff, but at a very high level, theoretically, it's possible to do very unique geofences if that's something that we need to do. We certainly have done it in the past, and then once we put those geofences in place, we try to optimize them to make sure they're reactive as possible. So if you are looking at a pathway, depending on proximity to road or other pedestrian ways or parking lots, those sorts of things are, you know, we take that into consideration. We provide recommendations back on how we might put geofences in place to achieve those outcomes that you're looking for. And then once we get them in place, we continue to monitor them and then optimize as needed to make sure they're performing correctly.
Any further questions? Okay, we thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, folks, we have the procedural bylaw. There's a lot of discussion in the procedural bylaw. So let's, in an effort to not be here till 9 o'clock, let's try and not get cyclical and bring up the exact same thing over and over again.
I can just speak to that. So the intention here is to get, yes, quick responses back. It's not the final document. We'll then bring it back at the end of August for first reading. Okay. Or if there's a lot of discussion at the end of today that you say, let's bring back the updates and bring it to another GP, we can also do that. So this is the first step of many for this one.
Cool.
We just want to make sure it's adopted prior to October is the intention.
Okay. Let's jump in.
And I'm leading this one. So, so we brought forward the procedure bylaw. By October, it'll be 1 year that you'll have been in council. It's been just over a year that I've been your CAO. So thought it was a good time to, we noticed some things in here that we wanted to strengthen. We wanted to bring an update, and we thought, let's make sure that when we do it right and get some good feedback from you. So brainstormed a lot of questions on where we want to get direction from council. And then, like I said, we will update it and bring it back. We will usually one like this, we'd also get legal review on it. So, and then it could be further updated once the councillor accountability frameworks, but that'll be into the fall. So we're not sure if we'll have that in time or not. But if it is, we'll make sure that that's at least referenced in here. But it's referring to another legislation anyway. So I've got a list of questions. I don't know if you want me to just leave it with you, Deputy Mayor Payne, to go through. And I'll take notes.
Do we just want to go through them
Yeah.
piece by piece? Okay. Well, let's start with number 1. Does council want to change the appointment of deputy mayor? Do you want to vote in a deputy mayor annually at the organizational meeting of council, or do you want to vote in a deputy mayor at the organizational meeting with 6 months terms, or do we want to keep things exactly the way they are? So, thoughts on that?
I'm fine to explore what a change might look like, and I would be fine with organizational meeting with 6-month terms.
Okay. Joel?
I think it probably is no shock, but the, like setting your deputy mayor rotation 4 years in advance has its own like weird challenges. So I'm not a huge fan of that structure. But I also, this isn't really answering any questions, but I also don't love the idea of having to deal with it every year either. Because that creates its own problems too. So I'm on the fence on it. But what I would like to see is some certainty on what it is, either direction, so that whether it's setting it in shorter periods of time so that you're not like stuck for an 8-month period or longer, or if it's kind of keeping the status quo. I think if I was going to make an opinion one way or another, that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I'm totally game to the idea of doing it annually with the 6-month term. That has some sense to me, and part of it is that idea of projecting 4 years in advance is not always simple, and we do it with all our other committees too.
Mayor?
Annually with the 6-month term, I think makes sense. 4 years out, you don't necessarily know what your vacation time looks like, and that is a real barrier as we get later in the term for this. I also think it's not a complete balance because summer is very busy in this role, but so is December. So I laid it out in an email that the busier times, this splits up those 2 busy times, so no one person will have to do both of those within the same year, which is nice, because you can expect if you're the deputy mayor in either December or June, you will be asked to run. So it does split up that workload a little bit. I'll also note, I know we're not talking about this, but as we, if at one point we talk about the council pay, I do think that at some point we should look at a different pay structure for the deputy mayor, because there is a higher expectation and there is more work that comes with that.
Teach?
Yeah, I'm good with how it is, or exploring this. I'm a little bit, I was trying to think in my head how it would work with, because we're moving on from your 8 months to, I believe, Councillor Ustindi as the next 8 months, how that kind of fits into it if we change this. My biggest thing would just making sure that everybody still gets the opportunity to do it. I think it's a great experience to be deputy mayor and to see everything that kind of goes on with the mayoral
whatever council wants to choose. So it could be literally council paying for 4 years. So it really is up to council. You know, it could be availability, it could be experience, it could be whatever council decides. So there is no guarantee with this one. There's two ways to do it. One is everyone gets a turn, how we do it now. And the other is that you're voted in and it could be split out evenly. I've seen it done that way where everyone you know, they still vote them in so everyone gets a chance. But that would be up to those around the table.
I can assure you it's not going to be Councillor Payne for 4 years. Yeah. Holly.
I'm good with the review annually with the 6 months terms. I will say I was the one that asked the mayor for that information about just breaking down what it actually looks like to be deputy mayor and what the responsibilities are that come with that. So I feel like, I think that works best for me is just that 6 month term.
Mm-hmm. I actually, sorry, Tim, I'm going to jump in. I haven't had a chance to. I actually have thought over the years that 8 months is a very long time to do it. And sometimes your 8 months can actually be both December and June. And I know that's happened to me in the past. And it's challenging. With that being said, I also really like the idea of a deputy mayor being the deputy mayor for the entire time. Like I've spoken to a few other people who have been in roles similar, where they actually elect the deputy mayor at the beginning of the council term, and it's the same individual. So I think there's merit to both sides, but I also think, as Teach pointed out, I think having the opportunity to serve in the role is great. I don't think anyone should have to do it. You know, so I do think that if there's someone who doesn't feel they want to do it, I don't feel you should have to. And right now, our procedural bylaw has everybody doing it for 8 months, and I think that's the part that has been challenging. I know for me, a couple of terms ago, I had a stroke while I was deputy mayor, so it didn't fit, and I ended up having to put it onto somebody else. And so I think there are times when it would be nice to be able to separate yourself from that role. So I like the idea of a 6 month. I like the idea of it being something you can vote for instead of having it be appointed to you, because there are some who don't necessarily want to assume the role. So I think it's good. Tim?
Just doing the quick math, it would be repeated by someone if we went every 6 months, so just.
Okay, so it sounds to me like the consensus seems to be, just give me a second. Deputy Mayor with 6 months terms, is that voted in October? Okay, excellent. Anybody else have a thought about that before we move on? Yeah?
I just remembered why I like the 6 month term, especially particularly looking October to April, because in October is when we review. Is it when we review our committees? Because I feel for myself, if I'm deputy, looking at being a candidate for deputy mayor, I have to balance that with the committee load.
Good. I think we've got a feeling on that one. Excellent. Going on to the next one. Regarding delegations, the requirement of presentations to be included in the agenda to be a delegation. This has been a conversation we've had in the past. Is this something that you feel is pertinent again?
I don't recall that coming up since I've been here, but it's just not clearly required in the bylaw.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to strengthen the bylaw more than anything. Do you like to see
Thoughts
that presentation?
on that, Tim?
Yeah, I've highlighted everything except, and it's not that I like everything that's been put forward in this. Not necessarily stuck on the included option to appeal the CAO's decision to refuse a delegation.
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh, you're gonna do one at a time?
Yeah.
Oh,
We're going to quickly go through them.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with number one.
Okay. CAO to have more authority to deny delegations that do not align with the policies of council. Thoughts on that?
If you don't mind. I'm just going to add to that one. The procedure bylaw right now gives me the authority, but it's very vague. And when we had a recent situation come up, I actually ended up having to pay for legal because I didn't have enough backing in the bylaw. So just to say, if we have a policy or a bylaw that gives me that rationale, it doesn't align with council's policies and bylaws, that I can do so without getting legal.
Okay, thoughts on that one? Yeah. Good, lots of thumbs going up. Okay. Include an option to appeal the CAO's decision to refuse a delegation. Who would the appeal go to? To council. Okay. Feelings on that? That council would ultimately be, in the end, be the one that decides?
I'm fine either way.
Yeah, I'm fine either way with that too. Yeah.
My question is around logistics. How would that happen? So that comes in, doesn't align with council policies, then it comes up for appeal. Would it come back at the next council meeting and then they couldn't? So if that was the way it went, there would have to be a bit of a process laid out. That would delay that delegation by at least 2 weeks to the next meeting, and it's just process I don't understand.
I don't think that could be faster. Joe, you had a thought?
Also, in the interest of sort of transparency as to the decision-making process, the presentation itself would probably end up on the agenda anyway in order for us to even vote on it. So us being the appeal body for that would almost inadvertently just get the offending presentation out there in any case. Just food for thought.
Yeah, you had a thought?
That I like the idea of natural justice, and that is the idea that you have appeals. And I don't think we should ever not have an appeal. As much as I can imagine some of these conversations being extremely awkward, and a conversation and a ruling I don't want to be part of, but at the same time, the belief of natural justice is higher to me than my awkwardness. And there are ways potentially that we don't openly discuss repeating verbatim what might be offensive to our community or to ultimately us representing community. But I think a simple process should be made, and it would have to be included.
Appeals are also not always public. Like, it's not such a situation where you have to publish the appeal. The appeal could very well simply be council, in a closed session if necessary, but it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever presentation is being presented is going to end up in the public hands anyhow. So with that being said, it's, the appeal process could very well simply be a matter of each councillor reviewing the process and weighing in on it. It doesn't need to be more formal than that. So, yeah.
Yeah, just quick thought. I thought, speaking on the one that we recently had, I thought it was dealt with very well by Ms. Phillips. It was to the point of what was not allowed, but still allowed the person to readjust it and bring it. So I have faith in our CAO to make the right decision. And I thought that was done very appropriately. But at the same time, I would always support an appeal. I think if it gets to that point, my initial bias would be that through the actions of our CAO that I would trust her judgment, but I still think it's appropriate to give them that opportunity for sure.
Okay, so thoughts? Got a good consensus there? Excellent. Agreement with the current 10-minute time limit for delegations. Yeah, everyone's got a thumbs up. Excellent, good. Set time, sorry?
One thing I'll mention, I believe that means we would rewrite, because I believe in our current bylaw it says 15 minutes. Does it? Did I read that wrong, or? Ignore the thought, though. I'll look it up again, but I just thought, it seems to be contradicting what I thought was there. There's a 15-minute time limit. Does that include questions? I'll see if I can find a page reference here.
Okay, we'll go on. We'll come back to you. A set timeline of 6 months to a year for presenting on the same subject unless new information is being presented. I actually think that's a really good idea. Yeah, lots of thumbs. Thumbs all around?
And
Yeah.
if I could, I'll voice the comment. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I was waiting for your
I don't know how long I
acknowledgement.
gotta stare at you.
Of a year makes sense to me because that is a budget cycle. Because I could see something coming back twice in 1 year, but we just haven't gotten to the budget timeframe to decide on it. So a year on the exact same topic makes sense to me.
Okay, and we are talking about the same group or the same individual, not two separate individuals presenting on similar topics, because that does not read necessarily the same. It says a set timeline of 6 months to 1 year for presenting on the same subject, unless new information is being presented.
Yeah, I think we'd have to be careful on the wording there. It also could be organization. You can't have one organization that sends a different person every week and that be the loophole if they're.
Right, but with
So-
that being said, if the Lions have a delegation on a pertinent subject and this high school wants a delegation on the same subject, you can't disqualify one for presenting on the same idea. Know what I mean? Like if you have multiple organizations presenting on the same idea, the way this reads is you're disqualifying one.
I would say if it's different material, like Lions is presented on this subject and they come and that's where we would put it into the hands of administration. Like if it's the same thought process from the high school as it would be from the Lions and the same items are bringing up, I don't think that would be a valid presentation because to Megan's point, it's within that same year, we just had the same discussion. I think CAO would bring back that information to the high school and said, hey, we discussed this, or it was presented to us, because it's the same subject, so it's...
But perspectives could be very different.
That's what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
if the subject comes back and it's the exact same, which get them to tweak it or whatever, and then we would hear it, but I think subject needs to be in there with some discretion from our CAO.
Joe?
The problem with doing it on a subject is people can have very different like takes on that subject. Like one person could come and say, I want to build a dock over here, and another person could do a delegation saying why building a dock over there isn't a good idea. It's the same subject, but
Different perspective.
different,
Yes.
yeah, different information. That'd be my one worry there, is that we may be or inadvertently limiting people.
Well, that's why I use the Lions and the high school, two very different perspectives on what could be the same subject. And I think it's important to allow the different perspectives. I think what the spirit of this is trying to do is not have the same organizations return over and over again, taking up delegation time. I think that's what the intention is. So I do think subject is a problem here. Yeah.
Great example, but if it's personal, so this person comes, next week, next person comes. So if we do it that way, then we would have to accept it because it's a different opinion from someone else or different perspective when we do it personally. Organization-wise, makes sense, but then if we do it at that, then what's the distinction between person and organization?
That's a good question. What's the distinction? Right. Joe, you had a thought?
No, not a thought, but section 69 is 15 minutes for a delegation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You found it?
just now too.
Okay, so clear as mud on that one, I guess. Any other feelings about it? Excellent. Okay, let's move to the next one.
For clarity, was it 1 year? 1 year? Okay.
Thoughts? 1 year?
Okay.
Nods? Okay. Priority given to those speaking to something specifically on the evening's agenda. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, good. Regarding open microphone, does council want to continue with open microphone? When people tell me, when other councils hear that we do open microphone, they're always shocked because it's just not done very much anymore. Yeah.
I have to blur all of these and just say, my ask is though for real consistency here. It is a challenge when we say we accept 3, but ultimately we'll take 8 people. And that has been our current practice. I do believe we need to figure out what that standard is for us. And for me, I do think a lot of people could be steered to the delegation. That is much more open. I do love, I have to kind of lump some of these, but I do love having priority for open microphone for anyone speaking to agenda items of the evening. You don't know what those are prior to the delegation deadline, so you're unable to do that through a delegation. But for any other reason other than what's on that night's agenda, the delegation process to me is the best way to go, while still allowing open microphone for those time-sensitive councils making a decision on Tuesday, and they need some information to do that. And I want to know. I don't want to make a dumb decision if everyone knows more information than what we do. So I guess that's where it is. But wherever we go, my ask of council is, let's choose what that is, lay that out in the bylaw, and then not grant exceptions every time, because that's a really tough balance to grant some exemptions depending on how many other agenda items we have that night and how much extra time and how diverse the topics are. It's just too subjective to be doing on the spot.
Well, let's go back to the question then. Does council want to continue with open microphone? Simple question, yes or no? Okay, we have a yes, we have a no, a yes, a yes, a yes, a yes, a yes. I personally am a yes. So I think the answer to number 1 is yes. Does council want a period of 6 months or 1 year before a person can speak on the same subject unless they're presenting new information? Yes, please. Yes, please. Like my thought on that one is, if I'm hearing from the exact same person about the exact same topic for the 4th council meeting in a row, they're not presenting new information and changing my perspective because they're simply saying it over and over again. You know, so that's my feeling about it. I respect their right to an open microphone, and they've had their right 3 times prior to the 4th time. So I'm of the feeling that unless you're presenting information that is new, presenting on the same subject, you know, you've had your opportunity. We're not denying them the opportunity. Ian?
My sense is, I think it's okay to completely limit for very long periods of time. There are other ways to reach us on the same subject, with emails and things. One presentation on the subject matter, and like, I nearly want to say for the whole term, you know, but it doesn't have to be that long either. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it really doesn't have to be 6 months or whatever, because they can reach us, call us up for coffee, send an email, all these other ways to go to chat for councils, all these ways that we are open to the public. So I think the amount of time we have on these evenings is very limited. The opportunities are much broader outside of these meetings.
Teach.
Just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I think we haven't seen a lot of repeat, but I think my problem with open mic from the beginning and my confusion when the first open mic happened is we're only allowed to do questions of clarification, and then as far as I know from what I've heard is nobody follows up. So open mic just becomes a time for people to vent and then doesn't get any answers. And that's why they come back. And so I believe that, you know, for example, when Ms. Capper came here and spoke about the land acknowledgement the first time, she specifically asked every member of council to email her with their thoughts. And I was the only one that emailed her. So she came back and she mentioned that in the next one. So my suggestion would be for us to take open microphone more seriously, and when someone specifically asks us to respond, that we respond. Well, Councillor Estindi is correct that people can reach us through email and other areas. And we're only 8 months in, so I won't speak about this council, but in previous councils, one of the biggest concern was the lack of response to emails and to phone calls and communication from council. So that's the concern from the public is, yeah, they can reach us, but do we get back to them? Now, personally, I do get back to every email that comes across my desk as best as I can, and as quickly as I can. Not perfect, I definitely miss some and forget to follow up with some. But I think if we're gonna do open microphone and put restrictions on people, let's at least show them that we're listening. Let's show them that we care what they're saying. I think open mic is one of the most important things we can do as council, because listening to the people is our literal #1 job. And we have to show people that we're doing that by our actions, by our responses. So I'm okay with this. So we give other people an opportunity to speak at open mic and not hear the same thing. But I would like to see an effort and even a bylaw that states that we do respond to the people that come in on open mic, and we do at least acknowledge whether we agree with them or not. You know, if you didn't agree with the land acknowledgement being removed, a simple email saying, I respect your time, but I don't agree with that, I think is appropriate, because at least they know then we're taking the time. So that would just be my kind of suggestion with open mic.
So with that being said, I just, for clarity, are you okay with the limiting on the same subject within a year?
Yes, in theory, I am,
Okay.
as long as we're, you know, responding to them, yeah.
Up or down?
Yes, a
Yes.
year is reasonable to me.
Okay. Ian? Yeah. Down? Up? Holly? Can I say something? Ian's first. Oh, no. Go ahead.
So one of the challenges I found as a new counselor is similar to Councillor Johannesson, was that people come, they speak, and then nothing really happens. So I'd like to see a process for open mic. So it's logged as to who the person was that spoke, what they spoke to, and it comes back to council as to whether or not there is an action item, or if we feel it's an issue that, and how do we respond to that? Because I think when you come and you speak, you're looking for a response of some sort. You're looking to be acknowledged. You want to felt heard, and giving no response is not feeling heard. So I'd like to clarify that we have a process. I haven't seen one. Maybe there is. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
I apologize to Councillor Johannesson and Bilodeau that you didn't understand the process. So the process is we won't do anything unless you tell us to. So when we get to the section on the agenda where it's more information from administration, you could ask those questions. Could we get some information to this resident? Could we follow up on this? Could we? Or the other option is to do a notice of motion. So we don't do anything because we hear from people all the time, whether it's open mic, delegations, emails and everything else. But unless we have direction from council, we don't do anything. But that is the process. You can ask for more information at, sorry, what is that section? Questions of council?
Yeah.
Or you bring forward a
Information
notice of
updates.
motion to the next meeting and then we action it.
Okay.
I don't know if you have anything, anyone has anything more to add. So I apologize that wasn't clear.
Yeah, Tim. Oh, sorry.
What I'd add is I have absolutely felt that same thought, and I do wonder if part of that process, exactly what was just stated, could be written in. You know, this is what happens after open microphone. Items will not, I do think that a standard thank you for your presentation kind of email and some contacts for follow-up, if it's administrative, makes absolute sense. But then also, can we write it right in the procedural bylaw? That councillors who wish to action an item may do so by requesting more information or bringing forward a notice of motion. So it's very clear.
I appreciate that, Don, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. There's a lot of things to go through. That's fine. I appreciate you clarifying that. The thing that I would like to, and maybe this is a notice of motion, is I would like to be able to ask questions that aren't just questions of clarification. I think that's a very narrow scope for people. And like Councillor Bilodeau said, and I couldn't agree more with what she said, I think just letting people know that we're listening is important. And I mean, really, it's just, I think the minimum that we can do for people that are willing to show up and speak at open mic. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. Like, I can't, I feel pretty comfortable speaking in public, but like sitting in that chair and looking at everybody here, it can be, I would assume, intimidating for people. And I think if we were a little more welcoming, and not saying that anyone's been purposely not welcoming to them, but just more firm in our openness to be welcoming and to accept that would be good. So, yeah.
I just want to speak to this. One of the difficulties in not having your questions be questions of clarity is you start getting into debate. And then you're debating a member of the public. You're not debating as council, and that opens us up to a whole different set of problems. So I think what you had mentioned earlier, though, Tej, is really the piece to this, is allow that communication to happen, but getting into a defensive posture or trying to sway an opinion in that space can get really difficult, especially if they come in with something that is very challenging, that challenges not just our policies and procedures, but may challenge a bylaw. Then you're getting into debating a bylaw that's already in existence, and there's just too much to what can happen there. I do think, though, that your comment about that open communication, about, you know, that follow-up, I think that's where you can have those deeper conversations, that better understanding. Just that getting into a debate during open mic with a member of the public just sets us up for a lot more difficulty.
Just to clarify, I would agree with that. I'm not asking to debate, because I would agree with that too. I just mean, like, questions of clarity. I'm often confused of like that's so kind of subjective in a way of like what that means. Maybe we could be clearer of saying we're not debating or arguing with people, but I know there was a few questions that I had that weren't debate questions for, you know, Ms. Capper in particular, that I didn't ask, because I was like, well, is that a question of clarity? Maybe, maybe not, and you know what I mean? So maybe if the wording could be a little more clear, I think no debate, I can get on board with that. I don't think that's helps anybody, but just be able to feel like we can ask a little bit more, so that, again, that they feel like they're being heard and that we actually have, you know, questions for them. So I don't, maybe we could clarify that or word it so it's, I'm not questioning, well, is that clarity or is that not clarity or whatever. But I would agree with you on the debate part.
Any more thoughts on that? Yeah.
Just a great process around that. There could be a part of that process that if council has follow-up questions outside of that moment, maybe that's the appropriate place. Of course, questions of clarity as they're presenting, but then council absolutely can compile those questions, send it for follow-up as we're going through that process. I think that's the right way to do it. Giving everyone a minute to digest what the presentation was, not putting anyone on the spot when we're just here to receive an opinion from them. At that point, I think one of the biggest challenges, open mic presentations are not fact-checked. And we've learned really the hard way a couple of times that we've had an open mic presentation, that we've gotten into too detailed of questions, and administration is dying to say something but can't in that moment. And there is some information we need to know before we ask them a follow-up question. I think it is really important that in the meeting we keep to that. But how do we outline that process of, I do have follow-up questions and I want to be able to get those back, along with factual information if there's some background emails that we need to be aware of, so that everyone is not surprised. And I think being clear on that would be great.
I think the comment that Tej and Holly have both agreed to here, this idea of this formalizing the follow-up, is, I think, something we really need to work on. Somebody else had their hand up. Yeah, Don?
I didn't know if I should comment or not, but I'm going to mention it. I agree, asking follow-up questions and having that process, we could collect the emails. When you talk to parliamentarians and they do presentations on this, and as you mentioned, a lot of councils will say you still do open mic. They often recommend you should not do open mic. And I mean, I love that we do it. I think there's great value. I love when Mr. Dederay comes in with his comments that there's great information. But the reason they say that is you, even as a councillor, cannot get up and speak on whatever you want at a council. It has to be on the agenda, and you have to do a notice of motion. Administration has to have items on the agenda and write reports. And we're allowing the delegation process is there intentionally so that they provide their presentation. Administration then has information, we know what they're coming in for, and that's their way of getting in front of council, as well as email and coffee with council. And they recommend you actually don't do open mic. So doing it, I think having those restrictions in place, and again, I'd love that we do it. It's great information, but having those restrictions of just the questions, I think does help alleviate some of those concerns of people coming in to be able to say whatever they want. I've seen it where they've come in and it doesn't matter what they write down, it's what they say, and it's attacks on staff, or it's attacks on a counselor, or inappropriate as per our bylaws and stuff, and we don't have a lot of control. But again, ours have gone quite well, touch wood, and the process seems to work well, but that's a good reason to keep it to questions.
Yeah. Tim?
Yeah, and that's sort of what I've been thinking in the back of my mind, and Mr. Deathray is a great example of to come as a delegation, right? He could submit it, it's always about what's on our agenda. He submits it, you know, the week before, comes and speaks on it, right? So like, I don't like the idea, I like the idea of open mic, but I think it's gone a little bit too far, and to Megan's point earlier, like if we have a bylaw and it's 3 people, it's 3 people, okay, I can live with that, but at the same time, we don't know what we're in for, whereas a delegation, it also puts the onus on the public to, and we're getting into debate, but anyways, puts the onus on the public to bring it to council beforehand so we know what we're expecting at our council meeting, so that's all.
So, okay, I'll go to Joe first, and then I'm going to ask a question. So, just looking at where we are in the process here, are we still debating? Does council wish to place timelines, or which one have we circumvented? I kind of feel like we've gone off topic here. Okay, let's go back and try and figure this out. We figured out the year piece. Does council wish to place timelines on when sign up for open mic opens? We did not discuss that, so we're kind of somewhere in between. Do you know where we are, Ms. Phillips?
I think we can go to the third question.
Okay.
We've got enough. Again, this will be brought back for
Okay,
debate.
so does council wish to place timelines on when sign up for open mic opens? Yes.
3:45 makes sense to me. Currently, we have staff in here an hour before the meeting, and people are coming to sign up and then leaving and coming back. You have plenty of time to sign up, however many names we choose, 1, 3, 6,
Okay.
in 15 minutes. And I think having that designated start time doesn't put the onus on staff to sit here an hour before our meeting.
Yeah, 3:45, we're good? Okay, excellent. Next question, does council wish to make changes to the number of people who may speak? Thoughts on this one? Yeah,
Like I just meant, I'm fine with 3, but that's it. Like if we're setting our bylaw at 3, it's 3.
Teach?
I don't like setting the number. I like allowing who want to speak to come speak. I feel like, again, when people show up here to speak, I don't think that's an easy thing to do. I think they're here for a reason. And I'm super uncomfortable trying to, flex the gavel and limit speech, whether it be limit what people say or limit how many people say it. So I would like no limit whatsoever. It's not like we see 15 presentations, but it just makes me feel a little gross inside to tell people who show up to speak at council when our literal main job is to listen to people that we're not going to allow them. So for me, it's like I don't want there to be any limit. It's just I'm just uncomfortable with that as a elected official. That just doesn't make me feel great.
Joe?
We'll have a little bit of overlap with the other things because I haven't said anything yet. But I don't remember when we talked about this the last time. I think it was in January, something like that. It's been a while. I mentioned that I don't like placing many limits on it, just if for no other reason than we struggle to get people here at the best of times. I think I said if someone wanted to come and give an open mic about Santa Claus, I think is what I mentioned, fine. Yeah, we're wasting everybody's time, but whatever. I think the more we start to limit it and narrow it, the more I lean towards, well, why are we doing it in any case? I'd almost rather get rid of it at that point. So I'm in favor of not having a ceiling on it unless we want to set a time limit rather than the number of people. So say we could have a number of speakers equal to a half an hour or something like that, because some people might come and talk for 1 minute. But that's kind of what I thought. Is there anything else on that list that?
Ian?
I think we have to put a limit in number because you could be sabotaged by civil disobedience, which I love, by the way. But a group could stage a shutdown of one of our council meetings, no problem, with open mic if we have no limit. So what I believe we have to have, even though I'm someone who wants to add more speakers when we have, I think what you have to do is make it a conscious decision to expand it. And I also like the limitation, say, on a new topic, so that we don't end up conducting a public hearing through our open mic process completely unchecked. We want to say, okay, it has to be a new subject matter after our minimum is hit. New speakers on new subject matter would be another condition I like to put on it. Otherwise, you know, we can see it on social media, and it has happened in nearby communities where they actually sabotaged the meeting. It fell apart. Innisfail had that experience in the last term, and they had to reschedule the council meeting. And that's not a nice place to be in either, yeah.
I think the potential to filibuster is there, to have a meeting hijacked if you don't have a limit on number of speakers. However, the way to prevent that is don't limit your number of speakers, but limit the amount of time they have to speak. So if you say you'll take 10 speakers if 10 people want to speak, if you limit the amount of time they have to open mic, then that's a reasonable way to deal with that. Because I think most people who come to speak in open mic, what they want to say, they can say in a minute and a half. Most people, not everyone. So I agree that limiting people's opportunity to speak is unsettling, but I really do think we need to limit the amount of time to speak. Okay.
I did want to allow all council to speak. So what I'm hearing is if we allow more speakers, that we want to allow everyone to speak, but a little concern over it being hijacked. We could have one in there that with a 2/3 support of council, that you could shut down open mic. So if you did have an unruly group coming in or something like that, some way to shut it down? Or we're not on the same page, Kate?
I'd say I really would hope that we put in firm timeframes. I'm okay, I actually love saying a maximum per time, but also up to a total amount. If we allocate, if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, if we can get 20 people in that time, and we've said that sometimes, hey, we only have up to this time, so if you use less time, we'll allow more people to speak. I'm okay with that sliding scale with a hard time cap to ensure that we can still get to our meeting, but I do still see a need to prioritize those speaking on the current night's agenda items.
So with that being said, what do we feel is an appropriate amount of time for open mic? Holly?
All I wanted to say was pretty much what Megan just said. I think we decide on a total time for open mic, and as we have people sign up, you decide how much time they're going to get based on the total amount of time. So if there are 5 people and we've given 15, you can have up to 3 minutes, but you can't exceed the maximum. And I think priority should go definitely to anything that has to do with the current agenda, because those issues need to happen that night. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The only challenge I'd say is we let people know that ahead of time, and they often write and time their speeches. So I do believe giving that parameter. I love it when someone comes in and has prepared their time to then say you only have a minute when they've written a 4-minute speech, because that's what we told them. I could see that being difficult and a little bit unfair if that's what we've told them ahead of time.
However, with that being said, I think 3 minutes is a very fair amount of time. I think very most people can get what they need to say out in that amount of time. Yeah.
So realistically, we could say you've got 3 minutes, publicize that, and up to 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever we decide, so that that time frame is set as well.
So what are we comfortable with deciding then? Like, to be honest, for me, like if we're giving, 30 minutes to a meeting for open mic, the vast majority of meetings are going to take 10 minutes, if that. Most times we don't even have anyone for open mic. But there will be times where you'll have 10 people who want to speak on a topic. And if everyone has 3 minutes, that's 30 minutes. So, Ian?
I was thinking more along the lines, deliberating this in my mind, that we would very much be like what it is now, maximum per speaker is this amount. But if you go farther, then maybe we have to limit it to time per speaker with the overall time frame of we never go above this amount of time, whether it's half an hour or it's 25 minutes or but those others who are going to speak, the quicker they can speak, the more people we can have might be the way to go. But in reality, yeah, it is only once. We usually only have one speaker, none, one or two. And this is the times when we have a hot topic that we want to give as many people as possible with these priorities of this night's agenda, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, giving people that 5 minutes like we do now isn't necessarily bad, except when we go to the expanded time. I'm thinking that's when we limit. Because most people do get close to their 5 when I think about those who come to see us.
Okay. So where are we? Do we have a time?
I like 3 minutes.
Okay.
I think that's something we can adjust, right? Like that's something we can put out there, and if someone's writing a speech, it's 3 minutes instead of the 5.
Joe?
As someone whose mind can wander at times, I think if they know in advance it's 3 minutes, it forces them to be a bit more concise. Because we've definitely had some instances where they sort of meander a little bit just to hit their time. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'd like to tighten that up if we could. And then we could fit more people into a 15-minute period too.
Megan?
3 minutes per speaker, up to a maximum of 20 minutes as a hard stop on our entire open mic time. And anyone who wants more than 3 minutes, all it takes is to register as a delegation, and they've just quadrupled their time. So that is always an option that's available to us. But that would allow us, some people might take the full 3 minutes, and that gets quite a few presentations in. Some people we've seen come up and take a minute. If it's the same topic, we might be able to get in 20 people in that time frame.
Teach?
I would go, if we're going to do, again, I would not want to do any of this, but if we're doing this, I would want to go 3 minutes and 25 minutes, and then that gives us some buffer zone between, because if we're going 3 and 20, well, that doesn't add up. Someone's getting 2, but then actually a couple are getting like 1.5, because the time it takes for people to ask follow-up questions or clarifying questions and then head back and come up. So I would be comfortable as a compromise to do 3 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah, I'm good with that. So what do we think on 3:25? Yeah? Let's go. Okay, excellent. Okay, we are on priority given to those speaking to something specifically on the evening's agenda. I think that's yeah, we're not saying you can't speak. Priority given to those who are speaking to the current thing. Good. Okay, regarding motions, does council want to require a 2/3 vote for any motion to reconsider? What's the current? I thought it was 2.
Could I?
I wish it was OCR.
I think the challenge is the bylaw really specifies if it's reconsideration of a bylaw versus a decision. It seems to have different rules, and one is clear and one is not. So we're just looking to be clear on what's there.
I don't think it's clear, and that was my challenge. I was going back to, which then refers to Robert's Rules of Order, is what the bylaw says. So that's why I had gone with 2/3, but I don't think it's clear in the bylaw, unless I'm missing it.
I think 2/3 vote to reconsider is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Is it different?
I also like, it is in a different section of the current bylaw, but that reconsideration should be brought forward by someone who was on the prevailing side.
I think that's already a
Kind of,
process.
but also not clear. So to me, those should be tied.
I think that's an appropriate process. Okay, does council want to require 2/3 vote to call the question? No. No.
Does everyone here understand calling the question? I guess is one
Yeah.
question. No? You do? Okay. Okay.
A
Because
2/3
it's the
vote
shut
on-
down debate.
But a 2/3 vote on call the question, I just don't think it's necessary. I think to call the question, the reason why it exists the way it exists is to stop the cyclical exchange that can happen. So, and I think the cyclical exchange sometimes is a majority of council who just wants to hash it out. And sometimes it's unnecessary. So that's my feeling, but I'm one of 7. Anyone else have a thought on that?
You're saying just majority, simple majority.
To call the question?
Yeah.
Just call the question.
No debate.
No debate, just, but I think to call the question, using call the question prior to debate is inappropriate. So, is inappropriate. Yes, of course. So, so are we good with call the question? Excellent. Yeah. Clarity on when a motion or bylaw can be brought back for consideration. Yeah, I would love clarity on that. Is that really a question? Or is that just?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, yes,
enough.
please, yes, thank you. Regarding closed sessions, required that cameras must be on when attending virtually during closed session with no filters. I don't understand the statement.
Yeah. It's just a way of verifying that some municipalities do it. I put it in there. I didn't know if you guys wanted, or that statement that I am alone and.
Okay, yeah, that just seems
That's-
like a no-brainer to me, but, okay. What, Megan?
There does need to be a clause relating to this and the other one relating to it, just something that says, if technology prevents that, then there needs to be a verbal acknowledgement, to the chair's satisfaction or something along that lines. Because there is the odd time that someone is somewhere where they don't have enough, we're in, not often in this situation, but not enough reception to make video and audio work. So just making sure we've got a process.
Okay. Does council wish to limit speaking times further? Currently, 5 minutes. First time speaking, 5 minutes, then 2 minutes for any further debate. What are people's thoughts on that? I'm fine with the way it is. Yeah. Ian?
Clarifying, is it 5 and 2 currently? No, it's just 5, period. Okay. One question I have is, it's more for the next one, amendments. Amendments can sometimes be as deep a thinking as the main motion when someone amends something. So saying we have to limit that debate might be a little harder, but I'm okay with the current 5.
Yeah.
I like 5 and 2. I do think introducing the amendment, the person who introduces it could be allowed 5, but then I think every conversation around there afterwards should be 2.
Okay. Does council wish to grant more authority for the chair to limit debate when it becomes repetitive? I do think, as I mentioned a minute ago with the Robert's Rules situation, I think with calling the question, sometimes debate does get cyclical. And if it's just a matter of reiterating the point that you took your 5 minutes to make 5 minutes ago, I don't think that's necessary. I think repeating the situation is just taking time. It's not swaying the individual's ideas. So I'm not sure if that's something we should formalize, or whether that's just something we should have as an understanding, though. Formalizing that is going to be very difficult. But just understanding, let's not get cyclical in our conversation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say too, the only time I think I've found personally when it becomes repetitive is when we're not really sticking to the 5 minutes and we're bouncing around a lot and having like a minute here and 30 seconds there and then back to a minute. So like if we're more strictly enforcing, I think, the 5 minute time limit for things and really kind of having a more structured meeting, I think the risk of it becoming repetitive gets inherently lowered.
But I do think that if you're the one, you know, as Ian pointed out, and I think this is a truth, if you're presenting an amendment and you are the one presenting the amendment, sometimes what has to happen is an explanation of the rationale of the amendment. I don't think if you're presenting the amendment that 2 minutes is enough all the time. So I do think that if you are the presenter of the amendment, you should be able to have 5 minutes to explain your situation, to explain the rationale. Yeah.
I'll just know, another point of order, we don't necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have to, point of order, call the question. It could, any counselor could say, point of order, going around in circles, and that could rein us back in as well. So it doesn't need to be right to the question. We can all hold each other to account on that.
So thoughts on this one? Are we good with 5 minutes, 2 minutes for further debate, 5 minutes for an amendment? If you're presenting the amendment? Okay. Tim?
Yeah, 5 minutes for presenting the amendment, 2 minutes to debate, correct?
Okay, excellent. Other updates, clear information on point of order and point of privilege. I just think people, if they don't understand what point of order or point of privilege mean, they should ask. You know, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with having more clarity. Thoughts on that? Good, excellent. Option for chair, council to permit a member of the gallery to speak when deemed pertinent to the discussion. The difficulty with this one is the relative understanding of what pertinent means. I think there's a danger in this one, in just getting really off topic, just moving away from the understanding. Yeah.
I like it with majority. I'll give the example of the archives. We went around and around in circles, and then we were able to ask a very straightforward question to a member of the archives that was sitting in the gallery, and then we were able to wrap up our discussion. So it doesn't happen often. I think you absolutely want council majority to be clear on that, but I can see on occasion when that could be useful.
Yeah.
One thought I had was you call a recess, someone goes talk to them, someone
Yes.
comes back and speaks as counselor. That would limit how
Much more
that
appropriate.
difficulty. That was another thought I had.
I think to follow what Ian has said, you know, one of the things we might want to consider in our procedures is how we indicate a call for a recess. You know, right now it's sort of very informal, get the eye of the chair and try and one of these things, right? I've been doing that for 12 years. But I think asking for a recess, is a very appropriate thing at times. So I'm not sure if that's in our procedural bylaw, but it likely should be. Yeah.
Couldn't that be just a simple point of order? Can we take a recess? Is it that simple? Or does that, by calling point of order, end that discussion?
Well, right now for a recess, it's entirely at the discretion of the chair. So.
By calling point of order.
But the chair at that point can just ignore you and not call the recess. They could, in all honesty. So.
I think a counselor could just say, I'd like to request a recess. And then, I mean, I would hope the chair would, unless it was, I mean, sometimes there's situations where, you know, well, like last week, you made the judgment that, well, let's finish this one up first. So, you know, is rationale why the chair would deny it, but if it was something like this, you know, like to call a recess and then we can have a follow-up discussion, right?
And would we call it a point of personal privilege to go to the
I'd say it
bathroom?
would be more privilege, point of privilege would fit better there than point of order.
I just have to say that.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. So are we fine with question number 2? The speaker being able to speak? I think there's a better way to doing it than just asking somebody in the gallery, so. Social media usage during council meetings. Is this even a thing? Thoughts on this one? Like, I thought already that, like, isn't there something in our procedure that we're not supposed to have our cell phones and things? Yeah.
I'm just going to say, as a new counselor, I just think we shouldn't be able to. We should be focused on the meeting. So what is currently in the bylaw or what's going to be in the bylaw, my opinion is we should not be able to have access to social media. We should not be on it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but during recess or whatever.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we want to be careful with a little bit. Like I always have my email, obviously in Messenger open, and I've received, because I know people watch this and are watching this right now, and I've received messages during a meeting to my Facebook that have been helpful in the meeting, including on the 10s. So for me, I think it's actually a good way to, it's one thing if you're like just browsing it, but if I'm going to always keep my messages open, like when I get a notification that I have a message on my phone, I go to my computer, and a lot of times are relevant to what we're talking about. And I think that's a good reminder for me on certain issues, specifically with the tent issue, where someone mentioned their thoughts on the tent, and then I think I even said I just got a message from somebody who actually doesn't really like my politics, but wanted me to speak on something. So that was helpful in that moment, and yeah, that's what I will continue to do.
Yeah.
That actually is a good example of why we probably shouldn't have it on, is allowing us to be influenced in the room by outside individuals is the same as asking anyone in the gallery to speak up at any point during the meeting, which we don't allow. So the idea is we gather the information, and then in this room, it's you debating with each other. So it's not actually proper governance to be taking advice from outside individuals while you're in council chambers. It should be in advance, it should be having those conversations, 100%, but not during the council meeting, because that's no difference than saying, you know, sorry, you're in the gallery, you know, to Mr. Dederer, do you have a comment on this? I'd like to hear your opinion, which is not permitted. So it's no different than allowing that on social media or emails during the meeting. It should be debate around this table at that time.
I would
Just from a governance perspective.
for sure. I would push
My
back.
advice.
I would push back on your terminology of influenced. I'm very hard to be influenced by anybody, but it's if it's pertinent to the conversation, and that was in the moment. But yeah, I'm not influenced by anyone in any sort of way. The comment was on the destroying of the grass that the tents would cause, and that was something that I hadn't thought of, and I thought that was pertinent. But you know, like I will, if that becomes a bylaw, I'll follow it. But until then, like, my messages are always open for people not to be influenced, but to hear from different people and different people's perspectives as well.
But what you just said showed how it influenced your idea.
It's not an influence, though. It's added to the thought process. So.
I think collecting information is unbelievably important prior to when you get here. When we're here, it's this group that needs to make the decision. So I think it's important to have the communication open with the public, but I feel like when we're here, it needs to be what we're here to do. And one of the things that I was taught years ago by Betty Osmond is we create bylaws and policies not for individuals, but for groups. And it could very well be, you know, you sitting here today, you're not able to be influenced by something that someone's going to send you. But the counselor sitting here next may very well be somebody who's influenced, who's easily influenced by public opinion. So having that understanding that you're not creating policy for you today, you're creating policy for everyone who's going to come next. I think that's the important piece to remember. I think it's a very wise thing to not have your social media on during council meetings, to not have your attention divided, to come in with the idea that this is what we're doing today. One of the things that I've always said is you need to read your agenda. You need to be completely immersed in your agenda before you walk into a meeting. I think that immersion is important, and I think being separated from the world when we're in here is an important piece. Yeah.
I'll just point out the obvious, though. Enforcement on that is going to be basically impossible. If you wanted to be strict about it, I'm looking at 2 devices right here that aren't town devices. I would say then, when we're at the meeting, this is the only thing we can use. Send it over to IT. Oh, is it? Oh, whatever, okay.
Town device.
I wasn't talking about yours.
This is town device.
Where did you get the fancy tablet? Sorry, off topic.
This is also a town device. Yes.
This is a town device.
I hate you both. I'm stuck with this thing.
Yes.
Anyways.
You're just not
No,
right enough to-
point is more, okay, if it's a town device and awesome, then I would suggest we send it off to IT and have these things locked down. They can very easily put blockers on here that say between the times of 4 and 8 p.m., it can't access anything but the town SharePoint or something like that. Mm-hmm. Right? But just during
council
regular
meetings.
council meetings. Not that I'm not suggesting that legitimately. I'm just saying that if we're going to put it in a bylaw, I think it needs to be a little bit more rigidly looked at. Yeah.
I would be very interested to see if IT can actually do that, because we can't at the high school. We can stop entire sites, but for periods of time. Like I'd love to see if they could do that, because I'd love to use that there. It would be great at the high school. Okay, so I think we've got kind of a consensus there. Camera usage while attending a council meeting electronically during debate and voting confirmation of identity.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm with Ian. I'm curious as to what that means.
What we do now on camera. Like, it's what we do now with our live video stream.
Okay?
Essentially, if you're attending remotely, you could turn off your camera if there's, say, a delegation being presented on the screen, but anytime we're actively engaging in voting and debate, your camera should be on. Still with the same clause that if technology prevented it, you could state that and still participate in the meeting. But I've seen this come into play in many of our other committees that I sit on. This is to prevent you from voting and debating while you're driving down the highway, or when you're doing your dishes with your kids in the background. You know, it's one thing to listen in, but to be at the portions of the meeting you're expected to participate in. If you're here, you should be here. So I
heard
support
one
this.
council where they were literally on the golf course. No ideas for you golfers in the room.
Okay, given that understanding, I can support this, the idea that we're present visually when we're virtual.
Well, it goes back to the COVID classroom things. You know, if kids didn't want to be in class, they turned their cameras off. You know, yeah, I think it makes sense. Okay, last one on this topic, committee attendance requirements. Thoughts on this one? To me, this is a no-brainer. You're on a committee, you should be attending. Yeah, I thought
Are they not allowed to attend already?
No, Ian just asked the question kind of quietly.
Isn't it already in? I thought there was an attendance, or it's just to clarify language in there. I did read it all before too, but that didn't jump out at me.
Each committee has their own terms of reference and attendance guidelines, whereas I think we could quite confidently make something that is a combination of all of those, stating what those council committee attendance requirements are, that covers all. So it's not, you know, one is if you miss 2 in a row and one is if you miss here, standardizing that.
Yeah, I'm fine with standardizing an attendance requirement. I know that some of the committees that I've been on in the past have been very strict, where if you miss 2 in a row, then you're gone unless the board that you're on gives you permission to not, while others have been very lax. So I think standardizing a policy would be a good thing. Yeah? Good. Okay. Number 8, pretty broad question. On to the next. Number 8. Are there any other changes that council would like to see? That's a really big question. And of course.
Yes, I would, on the topic of committees, I'd like to see council discuss how we'd like those committee appointments to take place. They're not currently in the procedural bylaw. We've moved to something in recent years where everyone submits their preferences and then the mayor kind of ranks it. It comes back to a meeting. Other communities have a committee of the mayor plus 2 councillors that give that proposal and decide on it. There's just no real clarity around how that's done right now. So, or we could go back to it's like the Wild West and we just hash it out in the meeting and hope everyone each got a couple. The other thing not contemplated anywhere is we have when you do that ranking of your committees, it says each councillor must take so many daytime commitments. We're trying to balance workload, some of those types of things. That's not considered within the procedural bylaw. So I'm not sure what the right fit is, but I know other communities do that by a small committee. I don't mind that. Or it could even be a function of corporate services committee does our CIO reviews. Maybe that's another function of, or there's a separate committee that is stricken up to review those. But I do see some potential conflict having me just be the one that decides that. And also in terms of balancing workloads, it is a real challenge to do that. So I'm looking for some direction from council.
Yeah.
I will say, especially as a new counselor, that was probably one of the easiest and hardest things that I did. It was personal preference, also not knowing the time commitment that I was choosing. And I think that it's something we really need to look at when we're shuffling our committees. I think I would support having a committee to do that, because I think we need to clearly define the purpose, the amount of time for each of those committees, whether it's daytime, nighttime. I know that we often, so it might not be the 3rd Wednesday and it's the 2nd. Things change, but I really do think that we should have a committee to define that, and then we can hopefully spread that balance throughout council so that you don't have some councillors taking heavier loads than others.
I like the idea of a committee of 2 councillors and the mayor sitting down and doing this. The only thing that I would say is for me personally, right now, I have to pay to sit on a couple of committees. It costs me, every time I go to a meeting, it costs me a half day's pay and a sub. So I think there's some real consideration that needs to be had. Otherwise, it becomes prohibitive to do some of these things. So I don't want to lose the conversation piece that we've always had, where we sit down and say, hey, I'd like to do this. I can't do this. I wouldn't want to have committees imposed, because imposed committees simply mean I can't do it. So those conversations still need to be had personally. But putting a committee together is a good thing. Yeah, Tim?
Maybe it's a good mix where we have those conversations, we submit our lists of requests, and then it goes to that committee, right? Because then there would be some of that potential understanding of what you can and cannot do, and during that option selection, when you're going through that, you could have a comment, this cost me money, or so there's some consideration when that committee is doing that. So it might be an option of a mix of both.
Joe?
Yeah, and I like the idea of a committee just because it doesn't put it in one person's hands, right? It gives a a little bit of a different perspective on everything. And then they can look at everybody's, A, their availability, and B, what they did in the past, right? Like, I have far too many daytime commitments, far, far too many. And I am constantly apologizing to my business partner to the point where he's going to start getting upset. Like, I'm losing 8 hours in the next 2 days of work, right? And it's costing a fortune. So, you know, doing it for a year is one thing, 4 years is an entirely different story. So,
Yeah.
And I will just say the flip side of paying to be on a committee is also taking committees and trading personal time. Because I have flexibility, but what I give up in my life is my weekends, my evenings, and Sundays, because then I have to work my other job because I'm taking so much of my daytime sitting on my committee. So it's not always money, sometimes it's time. And time is sometimes more valuable than money, but that's why I do feel that there should be a real process to setting these committees up and balancing them so that we're finding who can take the best times and then balancing so it works. The workload is not all on a couple of counselors, it's spread fairly.
I think too, one other thing we might want to do is if we strike this committee, is have this committee also work on the deputy mayor nominations. So, yeah. Thought?
Yes, and I'll say, I think that should be deputy mayor an added tick box on your committee ranking. Am I interested in, you know, any of the ones this year? So they could look at that as well. But I do think a very important part of the process, and I love that we do this ranking option because it allows that opportunity to provide notes and comment. And if something absolutely can't work in your schedule, then you rank it as number 10. And we've always been able to be pretty successful getting people most of what works. So I think that's what it's based off of, but we just have never written that down.
Yeah, Ian?
The one thought I have is it's impossible to predict the future perfectly. And so when we're talking, Councillor Bilodeau mentioned about the idea of workload, or certain committees are extra busy. Sometimes a wave of activity goes on in a certain organization that's hard to always predict, but that can be part of the committee process too, to say which committees are busy this year, or, you know, using the example of the lodge has been extra busy for about 3 years now, and more than they have been in the past. So just having that knowledge discussed at that committee level would be good too.
So it sounds to me like we're wanting to strike a committee to work on this, a committee.
Did you want us to add that to next week's agenda so you can formally appoint members?
I think it'd be a good idea.
And I'd love to see that be mayor plus 2. I think a group of 3 is quite reasonable. Really, we're only getting together once prior to that org meeting, but
Yeah, let's
that would
strike a
be great.
committee.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this topic. I know Ms. Phillips needs to get out of here because she needs to drive to her next commitment. And we are desperate for a recess, so I'm going to call one for the next 10 minutes. late. So Mr. Lebsack, we've got you up next with the Community Standards Bylaw Review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You do so have me. So I just provided some background there, and I won't go through the actual attachment that's there, but in 2023, we reviewed the Community Standards Bylaw, and we did so through public consultation, through a couple of open houses. We also did a public survey. That's the presentation that's been included, is the results of all of that. At that point in time, there really wasn't any significant changes that were made to it. We updated a little bit of wording and some tweaks and things there, but there was no major changes to the community standards background at that point in time. So again, we've added that information there, that document there as information. And then what we've done since is really the noise bylaw is the part that's come back to us more than once in the last couple of years. And so what we've added there, after talking with a number of different communities, I didn't write it down here, but I'll note that City of Red Deer does utilize a noise meter for readings, but it's only for vehicles. So it's not for music at parties, it's not for loud gatherings, it's not for anything like that. They do it for vehicles, and they do it, what do they call it? They do it strategically in terms of they'll get together with our CMP and peace officers, and they will set up traffic stops for an hour at a certain location. They don't just use it out of the back of their car. An individual peace officer doesn't utilize it that way. So they utilize it as preset traffic stops. So what we've done here is going through the noise section. We've added this wording, which is pretty much what everybody else has been doing lately too, and this is kind of what gets taken to court now and gets asked at courts when we go to court, is that the wording is just whatever section you're looking at, and then they add which would disturb or annoy a reasonable person. Because typically we had just had that in there as if you were annoyed, then that was a noise complaint. So now they've added that wording as would disturb or annoy a reasonable person. And again, beyond that, Council, there has not been any changes made to the existing community standards bylaw right now. This is just information gathering at this stage, and we have provided a list of questions there to help guide your conversation.
Okay. Well, we will do similar to what we did with the last one. We'll go through the questions and see if there's anything that people want to address. Beginning with, does council want to add any wording or increase the standards for the enforcement of nuisance and unsightly premises? Mr. Iwanicki, you had your fingers up for a moment, then you put them down when I finished the question.
I was leading ahead. The nuisance and unsightly premise, does it include, just because I was looking at the general noise section, not that one, does it include the reasonable person standard as well? And if not, I think I'd like to see that included in basically everything.
It doesn't at this point in time, but I would suggest, yeah, we would go through and add that to all the different clauses.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for everyone around the horseshoe's sake, that standard is included in, God, almost every civil tort claim, like legal test. The court almost always applies the reasonable person standards. The courts are frequently and commonly applying that standard to everything, and that's why you want to include language like that.
Yes, sir.
Question about the bylaw proactively going out to visit a property. I know a lot of people really struggle with the idea of, calling out their neighbors in terms of nuisance, unsightly premises. When I read the bylaw, it appears that our officers can do that. But we normally work on a complaints-based system. So I was wondering where are we at that in the nuisance area, especially for unsightly premises?
Yeah, through the chair. So certainly that's something that can be done is self-generated files, as we call them. We did get some direction from council 3 months ago to start doing more self-generated files. So that is something that we're working on this year. Up until now, you're right, it was mostly complaint-based. And the one that's still a lot required to be complaint-based that does, I know, cause problems between neighbors, but there's no way of really going around it once we get to court and get in front of a judge, is just, well, we'll call it noise, but it's the barking of animals. That portion is still, we require a neighbor to keep tabs, you know, track a barking log, that kind of thing, because it's not something that is enforceable by an officer pulling up, hearing it bark twice and then laying a ticket. So that's about the only one that is not a self-generated file type enforcement that we're doing at this point in time.
Megan?
A couple of months ago, we requested to start seeing some stats on municipal enforcement. When do we anticipate that? And then a follow-up.
Through the chair, would you like those monthly or quarterly?
Quarterly is great.
Okay, you bet.
And the reason why I ask that is, overall in all of these questions, I don't really have any challenges, other than I have a question back to enforcement around them. Without looking at those stats and seeing, well, are we actually, you know, if you're able to enforce it in its current state, then I don't have anything spectacular to add to this. Even around the litter, those kinds of things, do I see a difference in changing the fine? Not necessarily, as long as we're giving the current fine, but I don't have that data to give you any more in this conversation.
So through the chair, we'll bring those in July, which would be the end of June stats, and we'll present them in July for you, and we'll bring them on a quarterly basis from now on.
And that would be prior to us approving the revision on this bylaw?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, further to that, like, I don't know if we want to, if I'm in favor of increasing the standards. If we have the standards there and we're going to enforce them, then I'm fine with that. I think that's, we've heard on many different things about, you know, enforcement, so I'm fine as is, but like to see those stats, and then, you know, do we increase or decrease the enforcement side of things, not necessarily the standards.
Okay.
Through the chair, just as a response to that, what we're doing is we're going to create a template, I guess you call it, for reporting those stats. And it'll be similar to looking the way fire does it. So fire has obviously specific ones. They go to emergency or a medical call, they go to fire call, they go to a vehicle accident. We'll create the same type of reporting structure that deals with municipal enforcement calls or calls for service.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the next question. Does council want to add any wording or increase the standards for the enforcement of graffiti? Yeah.
I have one, just in terms of timelines to clean up graffiti. Not to increase standards, whatever, just but timeliness. And, you know, in some ways we want to see it gone in a day, and it's actually easier to take off when it's taken off right away, because then the paint doesn't set in and all sorts of other solvents can work better. But yeah, it could happen in January that my fence gets hit, and I really don't want to clean it up in February, and I want to wait for warmer weather. You know, but so I think there's got to be some timelines that are quite long, actually, far longer than you'd love to see in the summertime, but I would like to see timelines. I think that's reasonable for graffiti cleanup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just second what Councillor Estindi said, because it doesn't say any timelines in there, not even a reasonable person limit. It just says they must remove it. When? Who knows? You know, so I'd like to see something in there.
Okay, let's move to the next one. Does council want to add any wording or increase the standards for the enforcement of sidewalk maintenance? This is one of those ones where I feel like waiting for someone to complain is not safe. So how do we increase the enforcement, the actions?
Through the chair, I'm going to kind of assume that was a question towards me, is two ways. One is that we will do more self-generated enforcement on that. So we will be looking around, especially in business areas. In commercial districts, we'll be doing a lot more of that. The other part of it is just kind of explain a little bit to council is we get complaints come into our office all the time that it snowed last night and I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go for my walk and the sidewalk was slippery and they should have had it cleared already, all the way to it's been there for 3 weeks and it hasn't been done, those kinds of things. So that's why we do put the timeline in there, is just to kind of monitor that portion of not everybody's going to get to it in the morning before they go to work when it snowed last night.
I just, sorry, it's a bit of a gripe, but in my neighborhood, people rarely walk the sidewalks. So when it snows in front of my house, 48 hours later, there are no footprints in my sidewalk because people just don't walk my neighborhood. But there are neighborhoods where the corners of the streets are key to people walking continually. Like, is there a way for those higher volume areas to be monitored so it's not having to wait for something? Because I've had situations where I've clumsily fell, but I know it's because the person who lives on that corner never shovels their walk ever. So I didn't want to be a mean person and call about it. So I kind of thought to myself, this is a high traffic area. This is where people are constantly walking. So I think there's got to be, just a little more attention paid to those higher traffic areas. Not that I want somebody parked in front of my house, because there are times when I don't shovel my walk for 2 days. But like I said, nobody walks on my sidewalk. So my dogs don't even go on my sidewalk.
So through the chair, I'm not sure how we could write that into a bylaw, other than, again, letting our officers know that we need to be patrolling them. One of the ones I know Jarvis is very big on is making sure that we do the bus routes, because that's where the kids are on the sidewalks in the mornings, waiting for the bus, getting off the bus after school, that kind of thing. So I know those are kind of a high traffic or a high priority area. Mm-hmm. Same with the downtown districts, the commercial districts. So again, it's more direction for our officers than it could be writing it into a bylaw.
Good. Any other thoughts? Joe?
Section 38 of the current bylaw allows us to get town staff to remove the obstruction, which, let's be realistic, is probably snow, and assess against the property. How much does it cost an average homeowner if the town did come and shovel their driveway? Or not the driveway, sorry, they wouldn't do that, their sidewalk.
Off the top of my head, it's roughly somewhere in that $125 per clearing, because we contract that out. So whatever the contractor charges us, that's what's charged back, and it's roughly $125 an hour. Or I mean, not an hour, per session. Yeah.
Yeah.
I picked up on the debate that you described in the report of, going to the 24-hour standard versus the 48. And of course, it's awesome if we could all do the 24 standard. But I accept the 48 as being, the measure we should probably be pragmatically following. And sometimes people are away, but I still want to really encourage that we keep sidewalks open, proactive enforcement critical to that, because it isn't just the high traffic areas too. It's the elderly person that won't go out for a walk because snow is not there, and that really affects their life. So for us, I'm still in that younger category, but I've fallen too, as everybody knows. It's really critical for the more elderly to have access to their community, and especially those using mobility aids. The sidewalks, also in the report, you point out the idea of, grass growing over sidewalks, and I'm not going to sweat it over like 2 inches when the lawn slowly grows over the concrete, but I would agree that it could use a little more clarity on the sidewalk bylaw, just saying about, landscaping materials or some way of wording what we do on our property that spills out over the sidewalk, which also includes branches, clearance over our heads, hedge, the overgrowing hedges. But it can also be rocks, you put in landscaping. I've done that myself when I lived on a sidewalk property. So I think it would be fair to clarify a little more on the sidewalk obstructions without worrying about the 1-inchers. But
Okay, seems to be pretty good there. Let's go to the next one. This one surprised me. Does council want to add any wording or increase the standards for the enforcement of light pollution? Is that an issue in Sylvan?
Through the chair, we'll get a small handful of complaints every year. Somebody's garage light is shining in their kitchen window, or, the neighbor across the alley or something like that. Yeah, we get a few of those.
I guess my overall question is, are you unable to enforce what is currently in there? And really, I have that question on the entire bylaw. Is there any items that you just have no chance of being able to enforce?
Through the chair, I'm going to say no for the most part, again, especially if we add some wording in there to beef it up a little bit for the reasonable person. I would suggest the only one that we really do have a hard time with is barking dogs.
Yeah.
this is a reflection on light pollution, not so much on the enforcement of light pollution, more about as we approve, this is more a planning development point of view, as we approve new developments where people are trying to create perimeter lighting, they often do it the cheapest way, which is put it on the building and shine it brightly so it makes it to the fence. That creates a lot of light pollution when you're driving by. It's distractive. It creates clarity on driving issues at night, et cetera, et cetera. Putting lighting on the perimeter and shining it into your property keeps the light where it's supposed to be. So that's more a point of not so much enforcement, but just something to be aware of in our building codes and standards of community, as opposed to this side of it, enforcement. But yeah.
Nothing else? Okay. Enforcement of littering. I remember, Ron, years and years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago, you explaining to, I'm sure it was me directly, that enforcing a littering ticket is unbelievably difficult to do. Can you explain that again for the new people around the horseshoe?
So
I probably wasn't here.
yeah, so through the chair. Yes, so enforcing a littering ticket, especially like to an individual down on the lakefront, is what I was explaining a while ago, is extremely difficult. Because they almost take the stance when you go to court is that, well, did you give that person every opportunity to go back and pick that litter up and throw it away, you know, before they get in their car and drive away? Well, once they got in the car and drove away, it's too late. But that's almost the standard that they have there. Most of the littering or anything that we would do enforcement on comes around construction, residential locations, that kind of thing. The downtown portion is extremely, extremely hard to catch littering on, partly because, I mean, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you just throw your empty cup down on the ground and there's some officers coming towards you, we can do that. But nobody does that because they see officers coming, especially with our nice bright green shirts this year. It's, you know, a visibility standpoint, it's much better. But people aren't people aren't doing that in front of our officers when they see us coming. So it's a lot more of a downtown, it's a lot more of a somebody's packing up their family, they've been there for the day, and they got a bag or two of garbage laying there, and they pack it up and walk away and leave it laying on the ground. That's where we can try and do more enforcement. And again, we've talked at the officer level that, well, maybe we just lay that ticket and see what happens and take the chance. And see what happens. Either they pay it or word spreads, or we do get a good judge that, you know, sees it our way. But that really is kind of the area we're at with littering.
I'm sure there's more than me sitting around this horseshoe that feels like, I'd like you to do that. Like, I would very much like that. Joe?
Well, when I did my notice of motion with respect to the community standards bylaw, littering was the one that I was looking at the most closely. That I read it and was like, again, no offense to anyone who wrote it, but this is not, this is garbage. No, sorry. I joke, but I would love to see simplifying of it and tightening the standards so it's very clear that it's just, you know, if you have to compare other jurisdictions, it's fine, but it's just like, you don't dispose of whatever, litter, except in a garbage can or whatever we call it. And I appreciate that, you know, someone might say, how do you know they're disposing of it? Again, you can apply the reasonable person standard if need be and just say, you know, that a reasonable person would think that the litter is abandoned or left or disposed or whatever. I don't know. I just would like a tighter standard and not quite the laundry list that we have now.
Megan?
I just want to give away one good littering ticket and then send the information about it to any news station that would publish the story about the guy who got the $500 littering ticket in Sylvan Lake. I would love for that to make the news, even if it takes all summer to find one to give one of those tickets to. I think a little social action around that and knowledge of that it might happen could go a long way. So if that ever happens, that we're able to successfully deliver one of those tickets, I hope we spread it far and wide.
Tim?
Yeah, I echo that.
Excellent. Tej?
Yeah, I think the answer is kind of what Mr. Lipsick said there. I wasn't aware of the bright green shirts, looking forward to seeing what those look like. I think visibility is huge because at the end of the day, what we all want is not to have to ticket people, but is to have people not litter. And so I think visibility is huge because like you said, they're not going to do it. And I think, yeah, just giving that ticket, because even if they get off on the ticket, I would imagine it's still annoying for that person to have to go to court and have to do all those things. And then hopefully they don't want to go through that again. So even if it gets thrown out, maybe there's some, you know, annoyance to their life that kind of stops that. And then like the mayor said, publishing that we are doing that and we are taking that seriously. So regardless of if the ticket gets thrown away or not, I think visibility, giving out those tickets, I think that will go a long way into doing what we all want to do, which is not to actually ticket a bunch of people, but to just have people respect and stop littering. So I think those are good things.
Cool. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Can these fines be put on like I think it's a provincial ticket, unless I've got it wrong, so that it would affect the person if they're going to register their vehicle or get a driver's license renewal?
Yes and no. There is a provincial littering ticket that does that. Yes. Yeah. So a lot of our community standards bylaws don't flip over automatically, but certainly there is littering tickets that do. Yes.
Good. Okay, so it brings us to the next question. Do you got what you need for that one though, Ron? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Next question, enforcement of any other section of the bylaw? Any other section that we didn't address that you feel we need to address? Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure where it was in the report, just the idea of the fine level. I'd just say they should move up with inflation.
That's the next question.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the bottom here, looking for it, and you said
Yeah, it's the next
the
question.
end.
Question number 7.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so we'll jump to question number 7 since we're already
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Does council wish to increase or decrease the fines as identified within Schedule A, identified penalties? I think Councillor Ostindi's suggestion is very appropriate. How long has it been since 2023, since we've increased?
Correct,
them?
2023, we increased them, yes.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. Okay. It brings us to the end of this conversation and brings us to the next conversation, which also happens to be with Mr. Lebsack. Mr. Lebsack, visitor pay parking fees review.
Your worship and council, I haven't obviously gone into background or anything there because it's top of mind and we have just been going through it all spring. But what I did do there in the discussion is what I wanted to put here or make clear from administration's point of view is the first couple lines here in the discussion is, so we went back through and we reviewed all our phone calls, notes, anything from drop-ins to the detachment and concerns that have been submitted online. And of course, the general theme seems to be that $50 a day is too expensive. But we really believe that when you look at the root cause of the concerns and when you hear what the details of people are saying, it's overwhelmingly that there's no hourly fee anymore. So we never heard hardly anything last year at $30 an hour because they would come, or $30 a day because they'd just come and drop in for an hour and they paid $3 and leave. You know, so I think that's really the root cause now is that when we went to the flat rate fee, even though the increase is significant to some people, I still believe the root cause is the flat rate fee versus being able to pay hourly. So again, I think I explained that at budget time. In our previous contract, there was a refund option. So you could go pay your full day fee and then as soon as you leave, you hit refund and they would refund you for the time that you weren't there. So essentially they were paying an hourly fee. So again, that's kind of what we've determined or assumed from administration's point of view. And so then what we've done is we've taken the public concept, comments, concerns, and the feedback and direction from council, and administration has provided some following options for council's consideration. Again, these are just to start the conversation again, guide it a little bit, and we open up the floor to council for some further direction.
Teach.
Yeah, I think that's also the concern that I've been hearing. I'm pretty firm on the $50 a day. I've made my points about that. I believe for a family trip to anywhere, you're not doing anything for under 50 if you're there for the whole day. And like I said, I'd like to revisit that next year and provide some incentive to people who pay the full day rate, maybe a $10 coupon to our restaurants. So it becomes 40 and then it pushes people into our businesses as well. But if I'm all for, if there's a way, because I believe Mr. Lebsack, you said they couldn't do an hourly rate in that place, but I'm all for this option of $10 an hour to a maximum of 50 for that zone 2000 and then $7 an hour to a maximum of 35 for zone 3000. I think that helps. I think that allows people to spend the time they're here. And I do think that's a good way to go there. But I would keep it at the maximum of 50 for anyone that's here for over 5 hours. I think that's very reasonable.
Joe? Just go.
Thank you. I'm strongly in favor of the status quo. If for no other reason than we've debated this ad nauseum, and I appreciate there's a lot of alarm bells going off, but we haven't even had an opportunity to test it yet. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lebsack, with the exception of the people who were aware that you could do a refund option on the Lakeshore parking lots, you couldn't pay by the hour there last year, could you?
So through the chair, that's correct. There's no, there's no button to click that says you're paying by the hour. You had to pay by the day last year as well, but then you could get a refund.
Yeah, so the concern that there's no hourly parking on the Lakeshore parking lots when there was previously is not even true? with the exception of the people who understood there was a loophole. I'm putting you on the spot, so say no if you don't know. Do you know if, let's say, May of last year compared to May of this year, did we have a significant reduction in the amount of people paying for parking in those lots?
Sorry, I did not grab that information, but I can circulate it later.
Yeah.
Just a question on that first box, the budget impact. I'm thinking that the 409 and the 18,000 loss figures are reversed. That the 18 should be the one written first and the 409 is the second option. Is that right? That if we go to a $7 per hour, maximum 35, we would lose 400,000 approximately, or is it we'd only lose 18?
Through the chair.
Different zones.
Yes, that's right. So if you look at the zones, that's why zone 2000 is the ones along the lakefront, which are the busy ones. That's why the impact down there is so much. The zone 3000 is the new one that we did along 50th and along the railway parking lot there next to the library. That's why the impact is not as much, is because they aren't as full.
Sorry, question, follow up. The zone 3000 includes the library parking lot? Okay.
Tim?
Yeah, I fully support the recommended $10 an hour to a maximum of 50 and $7 an hour to a maximum of 35. Hearing from our business community, and to Councillor Winicki's point, I don't know if I really heard that people said there's no hourly rate, but could there be an hourly rate? That's more of what I heard to offset that, you know, there was comments of, you know, a mom coming from Red Deer for a couple hours, you know, it's $20, not $50. So I think this would, you know, we don't know what the outcome would be if we left it, but I think to answer some of the questions and concerns of our business community, we got an email from one of the business, tourist businesses, and he's had cancellations already for stuff just because of the cost of that flat rate fee. So I think it addresses a few things. Councillor Bilodeau was brought up before. We may even make more money depending on turnover of parking spots. So I think, you know, we go this route and see what the outcome is, and we'll get a report at the end of summer, and we can adjust some more if need be, or not. But I fully support the recommendation that's come from administration.
Megan?
Absolutely support providing an hourly rate. $10 an hour, fine. I will say my vote hasn't changed, that I do believe that the daily maximum of $40 is more reasonable. And the reason is this has gotten so much negative attention at the $50. That I think there's a mental barrier at that $50 amount, and adjusting that down even to 45, I think would make a substantial difference in that perception that we heard this, we're doing something. I think the hourly rate is the biggest thing that we need to move on, but my vote for the maximum daily would still be $40.
One of the places my brain goes in all of this is we've committed this year with our budgeting, we've committed to spending so much more on enforcement, and even as much as using some of those funds to fund an officer. So, like, I look at this and think we're expecting to gain an amount in order to cover the expenditures. We're not looking to all get rich off Lakeshore, but we are spending a lot to do better, just as people have asked us to do, which is the commitment we've all made around this horseshoe. My worry is that, you know, as Councillor Mearns pointed out, people are going to stay away because of that $50. I think the hourly rate is going to solve that issue. I am curious, you know, I wish I could fast forward, you know, with my little crystal ball and see what the outcome is 6 months from now. But with the hourly rate, I think it's going to alleviate a huge amount of the pressure. I do think the $50 maximum is still perfectly fine. Because if we have a $10 hourly rate, a lot of folks are going to get there anyhow. So I think it's perfectly fine. And I like the idea of a $7 with a $35 maximum in the other spaces. Again, it just simply means people have to walk 3 blocks to get to the beach, which is not horrible. If you go to a hockey game in Edmonton, you've got to walk 5 blocks when you park. You know, it's not any different than any other event you go to. Our event just happens to be a lake. So I'm fine with the 50 up close with the $10 an hour, with the $10 an hour rate. I'm fine with the 35 a little further away with $7. I think it's great. So I'm content. A completely unrelated yet related issue. Can we never use that font again? Most of my numbers are gone. Like in my report, I don't have numbers. Like it's just squares. Isn't that?
Through the chair, is it too small, or is it the?
No, it actually printed squares instead of numbers.
Okay.
So, and it's the font. It's that the font doesn't have numbers to fit what you had there, so.
I will make sure that.
Times New Roman, my friend.
I will make sure that never happens again.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah.
I support the, just want to say I'll support the hourly philosophy as well. And what's happening currently, and this is partly why I support it, is I've heard from residents who live outside of our community, what they're doing is I won't name the street because then people will maybe even do it more in the meantime. But they call a friend and they park in front of their house and then they walk over the tracks. That's how they're getting free parking. So people are looking, and you know, maybe I'm half guilty for saying it on live radio too, or on the radio too, but the idea there's different price points and people are realizing, hey, there's little shortcuts here and there from my friend's house or from a street that doesn't even have to friend, because we all know you can park on any street publicly, any city in the country if you want. But what we're doing is we're displacing more than we want, more than we might have anticipated. And I was a little bit surprised by the street that they were going to. And I thought, oh, wow, didn't think about that. And so, so we're going to create tension in more neighborhoods than we believed we were originally. And that will happen over time anyways, like move fast forward 20 years from now, when the province is 8 million, not quite 10, and we will be seeing these issues. But it's nicer when we can go there slowly rather than quickly.
There's a question here that I think we should bring up as well, just in the conversation. You asked here, Ron, does council want to provide free on-street parking in the winter season? Has that been a conversation that anyone's had? I don't think I've had. Yeah.
Well, you're jumping, but
Well,
I will say
I feel like we've gotten through the other pieces.
I will say, I guess 2 and 3 I'll combine. Today, many of us attended the Centennial Street Redevelopment Task Force meeting and heard from business owners down there. And what I have to pass along was they expressed a real need for this year to be a boom for them in order to survive into next year. And some of the challenges, parking came up, I think, at every single board that was spoken about for those businesses specifically. So I'll say, although on street, the parking cost might be okay on a Saturday, I know this is not a recommended choice, but the one that came out very loud and clear in every conversation I had this morning was to look at that dynamic pricing, to look at a different rate for on-street parking. In the off-season, we've considered that, but maybe that off-season rate also works Monday to Thursdays when you're going to your dental office, when you're quickly popping into the bakery downtown, those kinds of stops. So I do have an appetite to change that on-street parking for specific days. I'm also open to free in that other season of the year, but I do think we need to look at, but I'm okay with it remaining. I think keeping it in the lots helps keep us focused on big events and those big things, but also might not have that same impact on those businesses that depend on that everyday traffic at the bank and at other locations.
Yeah.
Just around that, we're gonna get a review early in the fall, correct, on everything? So would you be happy to revisit it at that time instead of right now?
I'll say what I heard this morning was they really needed this summer to be what makes them through next year, because next year will be a construction year, so that's not what the ask was.
Yeah.
Through the chair. So one of the concerns we have, certainly with our, well, two-sided would be, one would be with the app in terms of creating that Monday through Thursday component on our app. The developers, you'd think a software developer could whip something up right away. But if this isn't part of an option that's standard in their cross-Canada process, it always seems for them to have a hard time to get it done in a timely manner. So we're trying to get a timeline on them right now to ask that question. The other thing that we've thought of is it would have to be nice and clear in the app, because to put that kind of times and differentiation of days on signage downtown would be very difficult. It would be, you know, basically it wouldn't be readable because people would be so confused. So we believe that it has to be developed in the app, and we're just waiting to hear back whether they can do that within, you know, can they get that done in 2 days or 2 weeks, or is it going to be 2 months? So we're kind of waiting for that answer from them.
Yep.
One other free idea that comes up every once in a while in conversation is the idea of veteran parking. If a veteran's a resident of our town, no problem, they can register their plate. But I've heard that of, you know, visiting folks, any veteran coming to our town, and many cities have that as a standard practice to offer someone with a veteran plate free parking. And so that's wondering how that can fit. I don't think it has to be done through an app, because enforcement would see a veteran plate and know not to enforce something if that's in a bylaw. But that's come up a couple times in conversations.
Yeah. Where are we? Feel like we got to the end.
Nope.
We didn't get to the end. That's the end of the questions. Oh, council okay with winter season being November 1st to April 3rd?
And I'm not sure we gave any direction on the last question. I spoke, but nobody else did.
The free parking in the winter season? Does anyone
For
feel
the
like?
on-street days of the week, any of that?
On-street days of the week. What people think of the on-street days of the week?
I think we're waiting to hear, like, I'm fine to look at it, but we need to hear back from administration. So I'm fine to pursue that, but if it's 6 months, then we'd have to make, I don't know how we get around that, right?
And I guess I think we should give administration that direction, because if no one's interested in it, it doesn't matter what the answer is, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
I'd support that too, even if it comes a month delayed and that, and it creates a buzz too if you have a new announcement about parking separate from everything else, and it focuses on the main street. You know, because literally we've made decisions at council to prioritize our main street area for redevelopment, and this is another way to revitalize our newly defined downtown. So I think it's a positive.
Holly?
I would support that too, the downtown. We have been hearing for quite a while concerns over, and this is that balance piece, which is pretty much everything we have to do as council with everything in Sylvan Lake is finding the balance to bring in the revenue, but be fair, and so we're not pushing business away for business owners. So I see it as a select area. I don't know, like that zone 2500, I had done all this research with the map and stuff, but 2500, Mr. Lebsack, is that's the downtown, but it's also part of Lakeshore too, is it not?
Through the chair, it is the downtown and Lakeshore only in the commercial district. So once you get to about 44th, that area ends because there is no more on-street parking in there. So it's only on-street parking in those areas. So it's essentially in front of the commercial businesses.
Okay. So, yeah, I would support us looking at a weekday rate for the business zone of the 2500. I would support that.
Through the chair, so certainly I think we've heard that we will look into that and we'll try and get that done as soon as possible. What rate are we looking at? Are we looking at, like, the current on-street is $5 an hour? Are we looking at 2 or 3?
Match it to the off-season rate would be my goal, then it's consistent.
Any other thoughts about that? Yeah, lots of nods and thumbs ups. Good. Yeah. Different topic. What's the next topic? I got a lot of squares on my page, so
One is just what I mentioned at the last meeting, the challenge. Dr. Fugler's office was one that came to me and said, in the off season, they're fine with the summer program, but in the off season, this new update on the bylaw making the paid portion year round also means that their street is resident parking only year round. So never mind paying, not paying, it means that only people that attend their clinic that live in Sylvan Lake can park there in February. And I don't believe we need to have resident-only streets in the off-season. We don't have a parking problem on residential streets downtown. Maybe a couple of days during an event, but I would be okay with completely removing that restriction in the off-season. And then just another on the map, we've used yellow and orange, and they're very close together for 2 different zones. Could we just pick a different color? It is the daily zone and the hourly zone. One is yellow and one is yellow-orange. And if we could use a different one, it might more clearly identify, because I've mixed them up a few times.
So your suggestion is to not have any charge for street parking in the winter?
No, it's just changing the current ones that are resident only, which are already not charged for residences. Yes, have those ones be, anyone can park there in the winter. We do not have a parking challenge on 50B Avenue in the winter.
Joe?
For the resident-only parking, was that not year-round before? So it was expressly the change to the year-round? Oh, okay. Then yeah, get rid of that. That doesn't make sense.
Holly?
I will just say, when we do land on our new rates, we need to go on a communication blitz, because I don't know if anybody else noticed, there are like 5 different versions of the paid parking zones that are floating around, and it's frustrating. So really think we need to give it a title of amended new summer. We need to call it something so we know that it, and then circulate the heck out of it. And we can also use that time to say we've been listening. Hard 360, we've, or whatever, just to let residents and visitors know, okay, we came back around, we've been listening, and we're doing better with the rates, so.
Yeah.
And finally, I would really love to see us commit to doing a business survey in the fall. I'd love for businesses that have challenges throughout the summer to be able to say that and know that we will do it. Hey, yeah, we recognize we're working through a year of this. We will be sending out a business survey to every downtown business address in October, and being able to say that so we can collect those results and talk about it next year. I don't think we did a great job with the timing in communicating directly with businesses. And I think that's a step I really want to be able to commit to and follow through, that we will review that business-specific feedback.
Okay. Mr. Lebsack.
Through the chair. I'm going to suggest that business survey is more than just paid parking. It's, yeah, okay.
What more do we need?
I'm going to ask a question. Does this come back to us to vote on, or are we making these changes very clear? Okay, it's coming back. Okay, great. And that might happen, sorry, Mr.
Through the
Lebsack.
chair, that will happen the moment we hear from hotspot parking on the Monday through Thursday versus Friday through Sunday rates, whether we can get those changed or not yet.
I guess my desire would see our rates change before that, like the hourly rate and things like that.
Through the chair, we have the opportunity to change any of these rates. I'll say immediately. The one thing we don't have the opportunity to do is create that again, that Monday through Thursday versus Friday through Sunday portion. Hopefully they do that in another community, and it's just a matter of dropping that into our software portion. That's the only thing we can't comment on right now, but as far as rate changes go, yes, we can make those changes immediately.
Okay, so there's a question too about the winter season. My page says November 1st to April 3rd. I'm pretty sure it's not April 3rd. Yeah, mine's just got squares. So, yeah.
And just for clarity, you said we can make those changes immediately, but they still have to come back to, just for anyone listening, they're not into effect after tonight. They still have to come back to which date of a council meeting. And then we'd have to do multiple readings of it, and then they could become official.
So just for some clarification, right at the moment, what we've done with paid parking rates all along is they're built into the budget process. So what we would do is bring this back as part of a budget update or a budget amendment, which would not require 3 readings, all those kinds of things. We will be introducing these into the fees and charges bylaw next time it comes around in the fall. But at this point in time, we've always done this right through the budget process. And that's when these fees have been adopted. So because we're outside of that budget process now, we'll bring a budget amendment, or whatever terminology Mr. Moore tells me to use, but it'll be that process, which should be done in 1 meeting as opposed to a bylaw update, which would take 3 readings.
Yeah.
Question on process, can we do that next regular council meeting? Yes, okay.
Winter season?
What is it currently?
The only question there, sorry, through the chair, the question there was, is November 1st kind of a too late start, or April 30th a too late end for the winter season? Did we want to change those actual months, or are we good with those months still?
What are the dates now? Is it this?
As of this year, it's November 1st through April 30th. Before it was May to September.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine with November to April. Okay, now have we come to the end of this one? 3rd time the charm? Excellent. Okay. You good, Mr. Lebsack? Okay. Next up, council committee and events reports. You have them in your package. Feel free. Oh, we got one other thing. Sorry. D. Forgot about D. D, you again. End of the Pier Boardwalk. What's going on with the end of the Pier Boardwalk?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. You noticed I didn't get up out of my seat because I knew I was up again. Yeah, so this is just something that We talked about it budget process. We actually have a plan in place here to replace the end of the pier because we have engineered wood decking on there. And I'm not sure if it's a little bit of the weather and a little bit of the age of the decking, although it's only, I think, 3 years old. But I'll just suggest somebody in the community has realized that if you go down there at 1 o'clock in the morning and jump up and down on certain sections of them, they break. And so last week we had, no, I guess it would be 2 weeks ago, we had 4 holes in the decking throughout the week. And then Saturday morning we went down, or Sunday morning we went down there and there was 2 again overnight. And we've been patching them on a very regular basis. Sunday morning we didn't have enough time with our current staff getting ready, and we placed some pylons over top of them. And of course the pylons went missing and a lady stepped in a hole. Scratched her leg up. Doesn't seem to be too serious, but we're still working with that item. But certainly we need to do something about it. So we have a project that's going on in the fall. As you can see there, we're going to, so everybody's familiar with the pour-in-place rubber surfacing that we use in playgrounds. Well, they now make that in preformed squares that come along, and they interlock into each other and can be glued down and stuff. So we have a project. We've already got a contractor lined up to do that. But with it's going to take roughly between 2 and 3 weeks to do the entire project. Plus they're ordering materials, which could be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks out, which means we can't do it immediately, which we would like to have a solution for it. So we just wanted to update council, let council know, and even provide or get some feedback from you that we do have 4 options there. Just wondering how you would like us to proceed with this. Of course, you can see the options there. One is to remove the existing boardwalk structure and replace with drainage rock and then top with limestone. The limestone, what we would do then in the fall is we would scrape that limestone off, take it back up to Pogettle Park and utilize it somewhere up there in the future. But you'd certainly probably hear from the public that it's a throwaway cost. So we just want to make sure that council knows that it would be an extra cost to install it and then remove it again, not necessarily throw away, but certainly manpower cost there. A second option we said was to engage our contractor right away. But again, we would have that pier end closed off for up to 3 weeks while they do the work. And again, the work might not start again for up to 4 weeks, if not 6 weeks, when they're waiting for their materials to come in. The third option is just to continue to patch and repair the existing docking as it gets broken, which is currently what we're doing. We even had on Sunday morning, staff was busy enough that they couldn't go find another piece of decking, patch it in there, that kind of thing. Supervisor just said, grab a small piece of plywood, put it over top of there, screw it down. At least the hole's covered. Doesn't look nice, didn't look pretty or anything. But that's kind of the stage that we're at this point in time, is these little pieces that they're managing to jump on and break are not standard size. So we have to measure and cut each one, and it takes a little while to do. So on the weekend with summer staff, it doesn't happen quickly. And then the fourth option again would be just close off the end of the pier for the summer, or at least until we can get our contractor in and get that replaced. And again, as we state there, from administration's point of view, we're not even sure that we could possibly close that off. Realistically, I mean, we had our fencing up there that we closed off for the winter time, and the second that it was warm enough out that somebody thought they could do something with it, they bent a couple of pieces off, pulled them out of the ground and threw them in the lake. So we'd have to do some real work in terms of how to actually close that off, the end of the pier for the summer until our contractor could come in. But again, we just want to let council know that that's where we're at with this. These incidents out there at the end of the pier, we do have a couple of options, and just we didn't want to go ahead and do something and then have council wondering why we did this, or, oh, that's not the direction that you would want us to take. So we just thought we'd throw it out there to council tonight.
Okay, so thoughts on the options? Joe?
Just kind of 2 overlapping questions. The one is, what's the liability risk, aside from it just looking unsightly, if we just ripped it all out right now and left it as dirt. I don't know what's underneath it, so excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, so through the chair, we'd probably end up with somewhere between a 2.5 to a 3 foot hole there, because we do have, it's not just sitting on the ground, we've got a wooden structure underneath of it.
All right, and then the follow-up to that, the second question is, if we're already putting plywood on there, why don't we just plywood the whole thing? Again, aside from it being ugly, until we can do the work in the fall.
Again, with the direction of council, because it would not look it would look unsightly. That would be the only, that would be the change there is, yeah, just the look of it.
Tim?
Yeah, I'd be happy to go with option one. You know, there's some throwaway costs there for labor and everything else, but at least it looks a little better than plywood, and it serves a purpose there. And you know, some rocks are going to get thrown and other things like that, but I think it's a good solution for the time being.
And I would think the drainage rock would just remain when they actually did the work after.
Through the chair, yeah, for the most part, we would take the limestone out, which again is what we use on our trail system up at Pogattle Park in the 4 quads, ball diamonds. And so it would just be material that would be used up there. Again, the labor would be necessary, but the material should be reused again, and the drainage rock would stay.
Ian?
How large an area would we convert to this limestone surface? Is it the full decking? Take it all out? Now, only part of it needs to be filled. Only part of it has truly sunken, or are there holes everywhere? I know I've seen some of the holes and they're deep, but are there holes along that whole decking, or just certain areas of it currently?
Through the chair, there has been and probably will be holes throughout the whole decking. It's not just a certain section that seems to be losing its stability. They've been on all different parts of it throughout the decking.
Okay. Yeah, I like 1 or 3, but 3 only if it's all plywood, as suggested. Limestone is a great pathway material. Looks nice, actually. Not as nice as that decking, I'll say, but limestone is that's a blue limestone, I'm assuming, crushes well and packs well. I like that idea, number 1. I think it's a good compromise solution.
Holly?
I would also support option 1. I know that we've had issues there since the fall. Like, we had a temporary snow fence and kids were stepping over it. So I think we need to get the risk out immediately. So I'm in full support of the 2-3 day. I do know that limestone does compact too well, so that'll serve a purpose. And then if we can repurpose that to Pogattle Park, great. And then we can order the products we need to do the job right at a time when our tourists have left, and we can finish the summer off with a small shutdown when we have all the products and do the job better there. So I'm a 1 in 3 supporter.
Any other thoughts? Seems to be, number 1 seems to be the go. In agreement? Excellent.
Thank you. We will proceed as soon as the Mother Nature allows us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So I do not have a 4E, so I'm going to go on to 5. Community events reports are in your package. Outstanding council items. What is Training Campaign 2026? Is that the fishing thing? Yeah. There's a very good chance that's not getting done.
I will say I did do it on the weekend, and
Yeah.
I did it really quickly, unlike some of the others. They were pretty quick.
Yeah.
5 questions.
Yeah, pretty sick of
I
it.
could probably answer them without
Sick to death. I think the 25 hours I've done already is sufficient. The other training I'll get on. I just found it again. Upcoming meetings and events. 1913 Days happens this coming weekend.
I was just going to bring attention to 1913 Days. We have our Mayor for a Day that will be joining us. So if you're there for any activities, council, please come prepared with a question or two for the Mayor for a Day. And we'll be at the pancake breakfast, the parade, and many of the things in between together. So I'm sure we'll all have the opportunity to connect with her. But if you can think about it ahead of time, I think that would be great. Let's see what she thinks.
Cool. National Indigenous Peoples Day is June 21st at Centennial Park. That's always a lot of really fun, lots of cool activities. Regular meeting of council on June 23rd. Can't wait. And Governance and Priorities meeting on July 7th, which I am not chairing. It is going to be Deputy Mayor Ustindi. And I am very grateful for you, my friend. Yeah. Is there anything else anyone would like to bring up while we're here? Excellent. Then this meeting is adjourned.